Welcome everybody. My name's Maralee Burnett. I am your astrologer, back with the really important messages for this amazing, shocking, surprising full moon lunar eclipse week. And I do expect the entire week to be somewhat excitable as a result of this energy. So hopefully you have been following me and been getting prepared ever since this new moon solar eclipse that happened in the sign of Leo. And last week's video I called the space between, as we transition between the sun's focus on that eclipse and now us moving into the lunar eclipse focus, which is more emotional. And sometimes that's why these can feel much more disruptive as a result of the emotional impact that it has on each and every one of us. And there is an impact on everyone. It can be surprising. It can be a bit shocking because this is a full moon lunar eclipse that will be happening under pressure from Uranus in the sign of Gemini. So we're going to be talking about that. We're going to do a brief breakdown on the days leading up to the eclipse, which in some ways are a repeat of some of the energy that we had towards the end of the week with the sun in the sign of Leo as it was meeting up with the south node. But there is some definite activity with Mercury and the sun this week that can begin the surprises for us. So make sure that you are going out to my website, maraleeburnett.com, because out there you'll get access to all of the written content that goes along with these videos. Out there, of course, you can see the article for that full moon lunar eclipse with a breakdown for every sign. And then I tend to give you a little different scenarios in the written versus these videos, just again, so it's just not fully repetitive for you as far as understanding the full picture as we get to this full moon lunar eclipse. So we'll talk about that more here in a few minutes, but let's kick off the conversation with what is going on in the week leading up to the lunar eclipse. And so last week, we ended the week with the sun meeting with that south node in Leo at 29 degrees, which is a very intense energy, and it could have brought people up from the past, could have brought up conversations from the past, could have reignited conversations from the past. The south node is all those past related things, and then of course both are opposing the north node. And as we get started this week, you'll see, of course, that we have Mercury, the little antenna guy here, that is starting to get close to that south node in Leo as well. And Mercury moves very swiftly. And so since Mercury rules conversations and information and details and is a bit of a trickster, there can be some surprises. And they can be related to the past. They can be related to karmic past events, past lives. But when the south node is being activated by Mercury, the information from the past is coming forward towards that north node in Aquarius energy. So there's something that we're learning, because Mercury is a teacher, that is meant to help us move forward from this energy. Now, it's not that we leave the south node completely behind, but when we have eclipses, if we're getting stuck too much in the south node energy, this pushes us, moves us forward. Because if we just stay where we're comfortable, south node, we don't move towards the north node in Aquarius, towards the people that we're supposed to be helping, towards the groups that we're supposed to be a part of, joining the networks that are, again, guiding our future. So there is something that we can learn today. Now, the sun was putting a spotlight on it. Now, if we were blinded by the spotlight, these bits and pieces of detail and information that are coming in for us at this time help us see the entire picture of what this is about. Now, you're going to notice this more significantly of course, if you happen to have planets at these late degrees of Leo and Aquarius. Other people will experience this event, but you may experience it through somebody else versus directly at you, which you might be glad about, because those who have planets or angles like your rising sign ascendant at 29 degrees of Leo are going to be under some intense pressure. Now, it doesn't have to be bad pressure, right? There can be good, surprising things that are going on, but there is definitely battles underway. Now, we happen to have a president with a rising sign in Leo at 29 degrees. And so that speaks to not just activity that affects the president, but activity that affects the United States as a whole as well. So there is some challenges going on. There can be announcements that are happening, and there is a need to recognize what it is that the people need versus what just the leader of the people needs, and to find some balance there. And so that is a big part of the story that kicks us off here on Monday. And then just like the sun did on Tuesday, that Mercury energy moves right into the sign of Virgo. But unlike the sun, Mercury's at home here. This is Mercury's home away from home, or its second placement. It rules both Gemini, where Uranus is now, and of course Virgo. And so when a planet is at home, its energy is stronger. It's more available to you, more accessible. And as it is sitting here, it is speaking with Chiron, what we call the wounded healer, what shows us our weak points and what we need to do to heal them, and then how what we learn through our healing process can actually help other people. So there is information, healing information about medicine that may be coming out today. I know we're hearing a lot about a new mRNA vaccine that's being developed to pinpoint specific cancers and heal them. So maybe we're hearing more about the trial that's underway, and that will, continue to develop. This planet, Chiron, or is technically an asteroid, is in its retrograde phase. So it started the middle of June. It'll go to about the middle of September, finishing the preview of this healing work that is upcoming and will work on through 2033. But it's going to dip back into the sign of Aries, and it's there that we'll be finishing the work that we started back in 2018. So we have really this opportunity to take advantage of what we're being shown by the sun, what we're being shown by Mercury, because it will help us on this healing work that we need to do going forward. So we don't want to miss it. So maybe it's something that you tuck away and you won't come back to it until next spring when Chiron comes back here. But definitely make note of any information that you come across that, like, it stands out. You may not exactly know why it's standing out or speaking to you at this time, but you won't want to forget about it. It is something meant to help move you forward. In a trine, like we're seeing now, which is this solid blue line, which is a 120-degree angle between the two planets, and of course the sun is still there, means this is an opportunity, a helpful opportunity that you don't want to let pass you by. Now, the other energy that we have going on today is that Moon is speaking closely with Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, where it will be sitting for a couple of days. And since Pluto brings death, rebirth, and transformation, there may be something that we're learning today, because of course the Moon speaks in harmony with Uranus today, where it will eventually, by the time we get to the eclipse, square Uranus. So it's almost like you're given this opportunity and you're supposed to do something big and powerful with it and create change. But by the time the moon gets to a square to Uranus, Uranus is already like saying, hey, we had an agreement. You were supposed to do the thing. You didn't do the thing. Now I have to make you do the thing. And it can be very upsetting. So there is something really important to pay attention to today, information wise. And it will likely be strange. Like, does this make even sense kind of energy? Because at the same time, the moon is speaking with Pluto, it's making what we call this inconjunct energy back to the sun and Mercury. So there is something about these details, this information, this data that seems to contradict maybe itself or somebody in a leadership role. But we can't ignore it. We can't just sweep it under the rug. We are meant to do something different, create change, right? Uranus in the sign of Gemini, the sign of the twins, the sign of light and dark, and two sides. Change, right, is being activated in multiple ways today. And that means change is coming, and the eclipse is going to be the kickoff point to the change that's needed and necessary at this time. So that's Tuesday. Let's head on into Wednesday. And on Wednesday, that energy that we were talking about, that inconjunct between the sun and Pluto, now becomes exact. And at 3 degrees, it's also bringing in the energy of Neptune. So a yod, or a finger of God, is formed when you have one planet, and we technically have two, and we're about to have Mercury Cazimi. So this is what they call a mission from God, a finger from God. This can feel very personal, specifically if you happen to be a 3-degree Virgo sun or Virgo rising, you will feel this as a personal mission, something that you are destined to do. And you have this energy of Pluto, like power that comes to you through other people, through the groups that you are a part of, through the internet. And it speaks in harmony with this Neptune and Aries energy, which can be, a spiritual entrepreneur, an artist, a spiritual leader. So there is maybe a mentor that is helping you, somebody who leads this group, for instance, but how you are connected to them is awkward, and it's how they challenge you that points you in the direction of the work that you have to do. So again, not everybody will feel the yod. The yod is personal. So it really is going to affect those with personal planets at the 3 degrees, and especially of these 3 signs. And when we think of the number 3, we think about creation and creativity, the Holy Trinity, right? This is a very powerful event, and it's even, we call it being basically split in two by the North and the South Node. So I expect this week to be monumental in the changes that are coming and in the lessons that we are being taught and that we need to learn. And where the finger points, right, the sun in the sign of Virgo, the Virgo energy about health and healing and how you spend your day-to-day activities. This is about earth energy as well. So there can be an earth event, and that event then brings to you the people that are empowering and coming together to help through this event, and some type of spiritual leader, which is guiding people through some kind of a crisis, for instance. So again, something we'll see collectively, probably affecting cities, towns, countries that have, 3-degree Virgo energy as their birth chart, and haven't looked into that yet, but now I'm curious and I might just be going to poke around at this a bit to see who might experience some fated events that unite people and unite leaders and, create some healing in some way. So that is the energy on Wednesday. And then, as I mentioned, we head into Thursday, and here we have more shocking aha moments and surprises as that Sun and Mercury come together. Now they've moved off the 3. That doesn't mean the connection to Pluto or the connection over here to Uranus or even Neptune really feels much less. But this can be a shocking, surprising moment, and it can again affect the Earth because Virgo is an Earth sign, but it could also be shocking surprises, announcements about healing and healing that is outside the norm, right? When I think about Virgo energy, it is more of a healer who uses alternative forms of healing versus that Pisces energy where I always think about literally a doctor or nurse and hospitals because Pisces rules over those. And the Mercury and Sun and the sign of Virgo are more about like the day-to-day people that stumble across maybe something that we learn that could, help bring healing. It can also be an aha moment about your own health, an aha moment about just getting yourself organized, right? This is detailed information. It also can be an aha moment about the conversations around the topic of control. And there can be some kind of a move to control large groups of people, some kind of power plays or moves being made on this day. But it's a good day for waking yourself up and coming to realize something that can help you. So this can be a helpful surprise versus just a very disruptive one. But the fact that this Cazimi is happening at the same time as the square over here to Uranus, which is setting us up for the eclipse that happens whether you're late on the 27th or earlier on the 28th, we're already in the effects of it. So because it's so disruptive and so volatile, and because also Mercury rules transportation and Uranus is in Mercury's home sign, this is a really important time to be very careful when it comes to traveling. Now, Mercury would suggest it's local travel that could be the most concerning, but you also want to look, and we're going to talk about it when I do the breakdown, at the houses that are being affected for you personally as you are looking at this eclipse energy. And that's where you want to be careful. As we do this breakdown, I'm going to give you those houses and what they mean so that you know that there's a lot of pressure going on and you just don't want to be taking any risks on these days. So this is not the time to be speeding, not the time to be on your phone while you're driving. It is not the time to be encouraging people to have road rage after you. Like, you just need to take it easy on these days because they are going to be very pressure-filled days and they can be extremely emotional. The other thing that's happening here on Thursday is that moon, as I mentioned, where it's been staying in Aquarius for a few days, is having its conversation with the North and South Node as it gets ready to, move into the sign of Pisces. So there's a lesson. There's something we are just meant to pay attention to today. And of course, the moon in Aquarius is needing people to come together to, in some ways, maybe take power away from someone in a position of leadership. So there could be some country, somewhere, some city that, somebody has to step down. And it's because the people came together. So maybe there's a recall for some election somewhere as a result of the energy here on Thursday. So let us move ahead to this most important topic this week, which is, as I mentioned, the full moon lunar eclipse. And I'm going to adjust this. All right, so here we are going to talk about the full moon lunar eclipse. It's a partial eclipse because of the fact that the moon is in Pisces, but the North Node has already moved on. So these nodes moved at the end of July. That kicked off the new work between the Aquarius and Leo axis. But this is the conclusion of the work from the Pisces perspective that started in January of 2024. So, what have you been working on? What's been going on in the world since January of 2024? And where are we about to see some big dramatic endings or conclusions, some shocking events that coincide with this full moon? Now, it is visible because here on the Pacific time zone, this is going to happen around 9:18 p.m. That's when it will be at fullness. It's almost at 5 degrees, but it's exact at 4 degrees, 54 minutes, and that's where the sun will also be opposing this moon in the sign of Virgo. So if you want to watch this eclipse, you can. It'll be partial, so it won't be a complete cover, and there's a chance, obviously, depending on weather in your area, that it might even have an orangish tint to it as well. So sometimes when a lunar eclipse is what we'd call partial, it can be less impactful. But because this is an ending, it's a 12th house event, it's Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, and because of the fact that it is happening in a T-square formation to Uranus in the sign of Gemini, this is a lunar eclipse that will be very eventful, very impactful, and probably shocking and surprising in the endings that are created. So you can review, of course, the work that you've been doing since January of 2024 in the house that's been impacted, and maybe more than one. If you follow Placidus like I do, this person would have had work from the Pisces perspective in both their 11th and their 12th house, and the work would have felt different as the North Node moved through this area of their life. And as this sun has just met with Mercury and had the Mercury Cazimi, and they both just had conversations with the South Node, again, I expect that this could even be somewhat explosive. Again, we have more energy that's shocking and surprising. And of course, still the sun and Mercury are very close together. Mercury has, of course, moved on, but they also are at a 90-degree angle, which is a square to Uranus, and Uranus is in the sign of Gemini. Historically, unfortunately, Uranus in the sign of Gemini has been active whenever we've been at war. So this was here during World War II. And of course, that means that bombs can be flying through the air. But they also can be information bombs, right? We are not just fighting like we did in the past. We have things like the internet that can be attacked. And because we're in the sign of information, and because Mercury is involved as well, there is something to consider as far as your information and protecting it during this full moon lunar eclipse. Now, if you have planets, angles, again, at that 4 degrees, then you've been feeling the pressure, right, since the Mercury Cazimi. And now that pressure is building. And I always talk about this like it's a volcano of pressure. And something needs to be released in order for this battle to conclude. This is like a hose that has a weak point, and whether water would normally be moving through, we're talking about Pisces energy, this shows an event where that water escapes from the pressure. And so think of Yellowstone and the geyser and one exploding. Like that would be water exploding like a volcano does under pressure. And so events like that could occur at the time of this full moon lunar eclipse as well. So it'll be a really important time to be careful traveling, careful around water, careful with your own physical self during this full moon lunar eclipse, because there is some very volatile energy that is going on at this time. So just like I said earlier in the week, this is going to be one of those times where you just need to be careful, cautious, be aware of your surroundings, and manage your triggers, because there will be those out there saying things to trigger you, to cause a reaction of some kind, to cause chaos, to cause disruption, right? We have this energy available, and some people can choose to use it to do things that are not kind, while others can use it to create, like I said, breakthroughs. These are informational breakthroughs, aha moments. And the moon, of course, is an emotional journey that's coming to a close. The moon is what we need to feel safe and secure. And at this time, what we need to feel safe and secure is faith. Now, there can be endings to things that affect artists, things that affect musicians, because this is endings. This is a conclusion, and it's a fated conclusion. It's the North and South Node, which again is a fated storyline that for some people can come to a close. Now, it can just be a chapter of your life that's coming to a close. So depending on where you have this energy happening in your chart, that's where you want to focus in on concluding something. Maybe you've been dragging something out for a really long time, but now, as a result of this event, it's coming to a close. So the last time we had this set of eclipses was 2007. So this is the end of that storyline that started 19 years ago. And whatever that is that you've been working on, this is the time where you're done with it and you're ready to move on from it, so that you don't repeat the storyline for the next 19 years. So the ruler of Pisces, we have two. Traditionally, we consider Jupiter was the original ruler of the sign of Pisces, which makes sense with its energy of faith and teaching and growth and expansion. But today, with the discovery of Neptune, that is who we consider the ruling planet. And so we look at the ruling planet, what's happening to Neptune at the time of this eclipse. And as we talked about earlier in the week, it's still having that conversation with Pluto, which is exact, almost exact. So this is that energy being activated again. And these two planet energies are what is helping us complete this important work. And they too still speak in harmony with that Uranus energy. So Uranus is a troublemaker from the full moon perspective and a helper with the work from Neptune and Pluto's perspective. So wherever you have this Uranus at 5 degrees of Gemini in your chart, it's important to tune into it, because there may be a part of the energy that's helpful and a part of the energy that's challenging you, but they're both important. You We have to have the challenge in order to experience the breakthrough. And that's the story of this full moon lunar eclipse. There's a challenge involved, but the challenge is necessary in order to end this story, to close this chapter. You won't do it unless you feel pushed to do that. So, with that, let's take a look at the breakdown for every sign. As I mentioned, this is going to be a little bit longer because I am going to include the house where that Uranus energy is going to impact you as well. So you get an idea of what pressure you may be under. And again, if you have planets around this 4 or 5 degrees, you are going to feel the pressure more than others. And you may want to find that you're leaning into your faith more, that you have resources that help you, and that you are not trying to go this alone. So if you're feeling stressed and challenged and under a lot of pressure, then this is a really good time to make sure you're reaching out to others in your community that can help you in some way. When we think about the pressure from just the Pisces and Virgo perspective, right? The moon in Pisces is water. It wants to be in the flow. It wants to have freedom to choose how to feel. Or the sun in Virgo is wanting more control over what you do on a day-to-day basis. And as I mentioned, there can be an announcement from some leader that is saying, here's how I'm going to be controlling your day going forward. And it's for your protection, right? And so there can be chaos leading up to this event this week that causes somebody to try to exert too much control over you and what you're doing. And the guise is to protect you. But the moon in Pisces is like, I can protect myself. I'm not giving up all of my freedom just because of what you're telling me to do. Now, whether that's a leader of a country, a leader in your family, a leader in your company, the story's the same. Somebody out there is making an announcement where they're exerting control over you or trying to, and you aren't going to accept that. And so that's where these outbursts can happen with Uranus in the sign of Gemini. And this could be you speaking up and speaking out. Now, if this is a battle, like a war, right? There's two sides. Someone saying, no, I want to keep my freedom. This person's trying to exert control over them. And this is where the explosive conflict can occur. And it can be verbal or it can be warlike. And you don't want to be the person stuck in the middle. But with all things, that's the goal of conflict, is either choosing a side or choosing how to balance the needs of both people. So this would be realistic controls that are acceptable by other people, but not total control. For instance, this could be, we think about the earth and the water energy, like a dam that is built to help contain the water, but the water is under too much pressure. So kind of back to that geyser example, and there's, a leak and an explosion, and then the water is everywhere, and then somebody has to come in to fix it and hold people back. Like, there's just many, many scenarios where there can be earth and water and air. All of these elements are a part of this except for fire. There is no fire in this except from Neptune's perspective, because Neptune, ruler of the full moon, happens to be in a fire sign. So it's intense. There's so much going on, and I'm going to try to give you some examples of what that might look like for you, but you also might want to schedule a reading with me, because of knowing your specific chart, I can give you better guidance and advice than the general guidance that I'm about to impart on you. So with that, as usual, we're going to do the breakdown from Aries back to all the way through Pisces. And Pisces, of course, this is where the full moon lunar eclipse is happening. So you guys are going to feel this intensely. And we'll get started, though, here with the sign of Aries. So Aries, since the full moon's in the sign of Pisces, that makes this a 12th house event for you. And 12th house events can be something that's been hidden from you or somewhere where you felt trapped and stuck, because this rules large institutions like hospitals, can be large organizations, and something about that is coming to an end. Now, this also rules the subconscious mind. And so there can be things that are awakened within your subconscious mind that you suddenly become aware of, and that awareness can create healing. So the tension is between your 12th house and your 6th house. So 12th house, subconscious, things that are hidden, spirituality, healing, and the 6th house is the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. And so you want control over what you do on a day-to-day basis. The 12th house is somebody in your organization that is wanting you to do things a particular way that you don't necessarily agree with. And then that can create conflicts and outburst. So if you don't want to destroy your career at this time or leave your company, then be careful what you say. And otherwise, there can be announcements today, or I should say at the time of the full moon, that shock and surprise you and change everything within the organization that you work for, which of course disrupts the work that you're expecting to be doing. And again, everything will come to an end. Now, sometimes when it's this 12th house energy, it can be somebody within the organization that is stepping down. And that means that role comes to an end, and then everything starts to change as a result. But there's likely to be some kind of surprising announcement, and that announcement puts pressure both on your 12th house and your 6th house. And so if we just stick with the work perspective, the chances are whatever you're learning is about to change everything that you have become really comfortable with in your day-to-day life. Does it have to be bad? No, but it is fated. So don't get too caught up in whatever the disruption is. Trust the process. Sit with whatever this awakening is for you, and then get real with what it is that you have to let go, because that's the point of the eclipse. It's eclipsing something out, something coming to fullness into your full awareness, subconscious mind, so that you can release it and let it go. And then it can be a shock to your mind what you realize, and what you realize then changes what you're going to do on your day-to-day activities going forward. So that's Aries. And then moving to Taurus. Taurus, this for you happens in your 11th house. So it is a dramatic ending in your 11th house of friends and networking groups that can be pretty shocking and surprising. Now, on a positive spin, this could be a project that you've been working on. Maybe you've been working on it since January of 2025, and now you're ready to put whatever this is out to the world. And it can be a mentor who's leaving, but it is something about the groups that you are a part of that is coming to an end. Now, the pressure to bring this to an end comes from your 5th house, because that's where the sun is sitting. So it is something that can be connected to anything that's related to your heart. So this could be a passion project. Maybe this is something that your heart has wanted you to be in one particular direction, and everybody else wants something different from you, and it's caused a lot of heartache because you're uncomfortable with it. Now, if you think about relationships, for instance, this could be, somebody that you're in a relationship with and they don't like your friends. And that's just been causing a lot of heartache and challenge. But I think it's more along the lines of work related because of the fact that surprise, the shock, comes from the second house of the money that you make. So this is a challenging project and you may have put a lot of money into it. And there's some shocking surprise that affects the money that you make because of whatever this is that's ending. So it could be job changes for you, Taurus, because of the fact that when this project is over, you expect to get picked up and you're going on to the next one, but that's not happening. And so this can be a bit unsettling to suddenly no longer be a part of the group. Or it's just the fact that you're really comfortable with this group that you've been working with and moving on and having to take on a new project and meet new people. It just can feel a little bit uncomfortable. But there can be maybe a surprising reward financially because this project completed, but the project would complete under pressure before you get this surprising reward coming in. But there can definitely be some challenges and changes coming in the work that you do because of whatever this group is that's disbanding, for instance. So just be prepared, get your resume going, and once you deal with whatever this tension is among these groups of people, then you're going to be ready to start something new and be okay about it because you won't be stuck and trapped anymore. Maybe you didn't like this group that you were working with and it made the process so painful that, again, this will be a happy surprise that you're able to move on. And then we have, of course, Geminis. And Gemini, this is, you've got all kinds of surprises going on with that Uranus energy in your sign. But remember, Uranus is an external planet. And so its influence is more subtle. But Uranus, since it's a lightning bolt, the subtleness, when it happens, shocks you and surprises you like lightning does. It comes out of nowhere sometimes. And this, of course, is something that is affecting your 10th house. So Pisces energy for you is a 10th house ending. And this 10th house ending is about the work that you do. It can be your status. It can be your reputation. Whatever you're most famous for is something about that work that you do is ending at this time. And that doesn't have to be bad ending. Again, this can be you ready to level up. So maybe you've been in a job within your organization since January of 2025, and maybe it was a temporary assignment, and that assignment's now coming to a close. So it also can be you achieving the goal that you set for yourself. And maybe it's about healing. Maybe you're completing a degree and you work in medicine. Then again, you would be achieving that at this time. But there's, of course, pressure to finishing it. So maybe you have a thesis that you have to write and complete, and you're feeling frustrated over completing the work. So there is something you have to do. You have to break yourself free from a particular way of thinking because of that Uranus energy in your first house. And when you allow yourself to consider a different perspective, that is what helps you complete this work or this chapter. And maybe it's somebody who suddenly sees you in a new light, and that creates a new opportunity for you from your career perspective. But there's that challenge with that energy at home, with, of course, the sun and Mercury shining a light at home, that makes you uncomfortable with the potential to take on this new job opportunity that shows up. And because the Pisces energy could mean like an overseas move, a move very far away, of course, that would upset your family at home, but you have to find a unique way to bring it up or discuss it that doesn't make everybody feel unsettled at the possibility of moving away from their local community in order for you to have this opportunity. So you're really going to have to sell yourself, which I know you won't have a problem doing, Geminis, and make sure that your family feels like they're included in the decision making in order for you to make this big dramatic change. And maybe it's a whole new career and you're leaving one behind that you've been a part of since 2007, for instance. Well, that can feel unsettling to your family because there's a lot of what ifs going on as a result of that. But whatever it is, give yourself the freedom to take on this new challenge and this new opportunity because it's fated. And then we have Cancers. Cancer, this is a 9th house full moon for you. So this is a big ending, right? Because Jupiter rules the 9th house. It is about growth and expansion. This is an ending that could be associated with higher education, could be about foreign people, foreign places. So there's something in that area of your life that's coming to a close. And there's pressure on you from your 3rd house where the Sun and Virgo energy is that highlights the community that you're currently a part of. So this is where you're at, where you're comfortable, and the 9th house is where you're going. It's the big picture, and there's this need to figure out, who am I in this next big chapter of my life? And, who am I possibly leaving behind to go on this big new adventure? And there is some belief system that you have been carrying with you for a long time that you have to break free from. Because that Uranus energy and sign of Gemini is in your 12th house. So this is the subconscious mind. There is maybe an organization that you're attached to that holds you back or restricts you in some way. And so you have to break free from whatever is keeping you stuck and trapped and smaller than you should be in order for this opportunity to come to fruition. And it's a big opportunity. It's a big emotional opportunity. It is meant to carry you forward into the future and not keep you stuck here living in the past, living with old, outdated belief systems that you've accepted that keep you small. So it's definitely time to move on from that. And this full moon is going to help you do that and allow you to grow and expand in ways that you never realized you were fully capable of. But use this eclipse energy to clear out those old belief systems and allow yourself to dream big, because Pisces is also the dreamer. And then we, of course, have the sign of Leo. Leos, this is happening for you in your 8th house. So whenever we have any event in the 8th house, which is the house of death, rebirth, and transformation, it's an intense ending. And it can also bring you, money from unexpected sources as a result of whatever this is that's ending for you, because of the fact that we're activating the 8th house and the 2nd house at the same time. The 2nd house is the money that you make, and the 8th house is the money that comes to you from other resources. It can be loans, it can be investments, it can be inheritances, versus the 2nd house, which is typically the job or whatever your primary source of income is. So there's some kind of pressure that involves the money that you make. And it could be a friend, because that Uranus energy in Gemini happens to be sitting in your 11th house of friends and networking groups, that has maybe a surprise offer or opportunity that kind of shakes you up as far as your financial picture goes. So it could be a surprise job offer, or it could be a friend who's in need that you want to help and your partner doesn't. And then there's argument over how to resolve this. So how do we resolve it? Well, you have to consider this person's situation, and do they truly need your help? And if so, how much? And how much is your partner going to accept as far as kind of liability? Because we never give away or help people unless it's money that we can afford to just walk away from and not expect to be repaid. So there is definitely financial discussions going on, and the challenge to your finances, like I said, comes from your friends and networking group, which can be your work friends. And so this is a good time, if you're in a relationship, Leos, to be having financial planning conversations with your partner. And if, one of you is suddenly changing jobs and it's disrupting your financial picture, it's just a good time to get clear and make sure everybody is on the same page and has the same goals. But maybe this is the 11th house of gains and you're going to win some kind of a lottery, and then, wow, everything changes. Then you need to go get yourself a very smart financial planner to make sure that you do the right thing. But big changes are underway in your financial picture, Leos, especially if you're early degree Leos. So just remember your favorite astrologer if that's the case. And then, of course, we have Virgo. So Virgo, the opposing energy for this means this is happening in your 7th house. 7th house, of course, rules your marriage partners, your serious relationships, long-term relationships show up in the 7th house. Also can be business partners and any kind of commitments, contracts that you are a part of. And some goal that you have in this area is coming to fullness and coming to completion. So if you haven't been married, this is an indication that maybe you soon will be. And if you are married and the relationship doesn't allow you to be yourself, then that relationship could come to an end in some way. Now, if you, again, are working on a project with a friend or working on a project with your partner, then this is the time where that is coming to fullness and coming to completion. But remember, eclipses mean for this to be completed, something has to be let go of and be removed. And that let go of energy is in your 10th house. So I expect there will probably be some announcements of some marriages that are coming to a shocking conclusion as a result of this eclipse, something that's exposed. But for others, this can be a surprise job opportunity, Uranus and Gemini in your 10th house, and it could be either for you or for your partner. And suddenly, the whole question of your relationship comes up, how will it be impacted by this career opportunity that is going to put a lot of pressure on your relationship? Somebody may become famous overnight, and then what does the relationship look like as a result of that? Lots of pressure. It feels very personal, but if someone were to lose a job, that also would put a lot of pressure on the relationship. And the most important thing you can do at this time is, come closer together. And maybe the losing of the job ends up being a gift. And the job's been getting in the way of your relationship. And so with it gone, you have to rely on one another. And then you choose a better job going forward that, brings the two of you together. But something major, dramatic, ending in your relationship sector. And it can be a good thing if you needed to get out of a situation where you felt stuck and trapped. But you probably would have rather done it on your terms than let fate come in and have to do it for you. So just keep that in mind. If you've been sitting on the fence about something, should you stay or should you go? It might be time to go. And next, speaking of relationships, we have Libra. And Libra, this for you is something that's coming to an ending in your 6th house, which is the work that you do. It can involve your health. It's just anything that's a part of your day-to-day activities if you're not working. And it can bring things that are unhealthy for you to an end. And let's say you're battling with an addiction, for instance. This energy can help you eclipse that out so that you have control over your day-to-day life back. And while it feels dramatic and it's probably been a long road, it's still in the end is a really good thing for you. It's also a great time to create new health systems of support for you. And again, get better order in your day-to-day life instead of just always having this free-flowing energy where you don't know what's happening one day to the next. Well, that Virgo and that Mercury energy are in your 12th house. So it can be a time where your organization, 12th house, wants something from you. And you, like I said, want a lot of freedom in what you do on a day-to-day basis. And it's the pressure in your 9th house of purpose and higher education that is what kind of helps break this stalemate between the two of you. So what ends now is a result of maybe your belief system changing. So what the organization wants from you and what you want no longer line up, and you're going to have a new opportunity to pursue something that matters to you and that your energy is more aligned with and is more aligned with your purpose. But there can be a big surprise because that Uranus and Gemini energy does come from the 9th house. And as I mentioned, Jupiter makes things bigger. So it can be a big aha moment where you're finally aware of something that you've been ignoring for so long, and ignoring your inner voice has been allowing you to stay stuck and trapped within this company, and realizing what they're doing, just you can't pretend not to see it anymore. And that's what awakens you. And it's what makes you say, you know what, it's time for me to make a change. So is it a change in your health because you realize something? Is it a change in the work that you do? Whatever it is, it's going to be kind of disruptive to what you've been doing on a day-to-day basis. But at the end of the day, you'll be happy about it because you're not going to be stuck anymore doing something that somebody else wants for you, but you don't want for yourself anymore. So big changes are coming, Libra, and how you spend your energy going forward, that's up to you. Then we have Scorpio. Scorpio, this is in your 5th house that rules your heart. It rules children. It rules romance. It's love, joy, happiness. So there can be something that comes to an end here. Now, sometimes this can be, since we're back to school time and it's lots of kids going off to college, you may have one of your children that's leaving home because they're going off to pursue something that they love. And that Sun and that Mercury energies in your 11th house of friends and networking groups. And so it could be, right, that they're following some friends and going off to college, and then you feel a little lost and it feels emotional because they're not relying on you. And that 8th house energy is where the pressure comes from, Scorpios, which is your house. So there can be a lot of drama. So if it isn't because a child is going off to college, this can be a shocking surprise that involves the person that you're in a relationship with. And it could be a friend that tells you something about the person that you're in the relationship with that blows everything up, and it would cause the end of the relationship. Now, on a positive note, it could be that there is a friend who lets you know that they have feelings for you, and it shocks and surprises you because you never considered them in that way. And then there can also be some shocks and surprises for you financially that could impact whether or not your child can go off to college, or just it's a surprise that money is coming in to support them going off to college. So lots of ways for this to happen, but I do expect you to be one of the signs that does have a dramatic surprise, and it changes everything because of the fact that Uranus is activating that 8th house energy for you. So whatever ends now, it's going to create a huge change in your life going forward. Now you're used to drama, so I think that you'll be able to deal with this and move on and move forward. But even you are going to be tested by the shocking surprises that are in store for you. And next we have Sagittarius. So Sagittarius, this is all about home and family. It can be about your mother. It can be about your ancestors, like learning something that would shock or surprise you, or suddenly moving. That this is an ending in your 4th house that can affect where you live. Again, it can affect a relationship with a maternal figure in your life. And it can be something that's ending that affects your physical body. So if there's something that's been challenging you at work that is making it so that you can't take care of your own physical self, then you're going to not want to keep putting up with that. So here's the challenge with 10th house being work. So there can be pressure at work, and there could be new job opportunities at work that could mean that you need to move. And it could be your partner that gets a new job opportunity and the same thing. What are we going to do about where we live as a result of this new opportunity that came out of nowhere? Because that Uranus in Gemini energy for you is in your 7th house of serious relationships. So your career is under pressure, where you live is under pressure, your relationship with your partner is under pressure. So if you're an early degree Sagittarius, this is something, ending as a result of pressure in, these two areas, whether it's your partner or your job, that will affect potentially where it is that you live. Now, for some of you, maybe you have been involved in a long remodeling process, and joyfully, right, you'd be like, yes, we're finally done with this redesign, Pisces energy, at home, and that's, exciting. Or your partner could suddenly announce that they came into money, and that, again, was a big bonus from work that they weren't expecting, and then you can buy the new home, and you can get a bigger home because your family's growing. So there's lots of ways that this could affect you, but there's definitely a big dramatic change coming at home. Now, also just be careful with water at home as a result of this lunar eclipse, because you don't want a flood to force you to leave. And that is just way too much work. So keep me posted on that, Sagittarius. Very interested. Next, we have Capricorn. Capricorn, this is a big full moon ending in your 3rd house. Now, the 3rd house can be something to do with education, transportation, your siblings or cousins, something that has been dramatic that is coming to an end. And it could be, a conversation that's been going on for a long time, because 3rd house rules communication. And if you've been in a battle of some kind, then that's coming to a close. So the pressure, 3rd house, 9th house. So what you think right? is third house. And then in the ninth house is what the sun and Mercury are showing you that no, you actually don't know everything. You're ignoring the big picture, and you might have some details, but you don't understand the big picture. And that's causing this tension. Let's say it's with another family member, a sibling. Well, there's something that'll happen that affects what you do, and maybe it's something that happens that affects your job, affects your health, puts your health under pressure. You learn some details about your health that make you change your perspective, right? This could be just a health scare. It doesn't have to be something permanent that, makes you reconsider this argument that you're having. Is this something that even matters anymore? And should I maybe put this, disagreement to an end? Now, third house things, if you're a teacher, for instance, there's a pull to leave working at a grade school, for instance, and maybe going to teach abroad, and then that would upset whatever's going on in the work that you do, sixth house, on a day-to-day basis. So there's so many, again, different ways that this can show up or affect you. But it seems like what you've been doing, how your life looks now, what you do on a day-to-day basis, something about that is about to change dramatically. And then, in its place is, something bigger, something more. And I know you Capricorns are not going to like to have to work through this, but trust the process. Remember, there's a bigger plan in place. And you early degree Capricorns, big changes are coming. And next we have Aquarius. Aquarius, this is something in the second house of the money that you make. So something coming to an end, something coming to a conclusion that affects the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. So it could be a change of job, a change of career, and the challenge comes from your eighth house, which is, the debts that you carry. So you may be the one that wants to make a big career move, but in order to do that, you have to really think about how to control your spending, right? So maybe you want to take a job that's going to be a pay cut, and you're going to have to stop spending money on all the things that bring you joy and make you happy unless you actually have the money to spend instead of building up credit card debt. So this in your fifth house is that Uranus surprise. So another way that this could show up for you is you just started a new job and now you found out you're pregnant. And you're not just pregnant, but you're pregnant with twins. And then that puts a lot of pressure in your eighth house of debts. So there is something, though, about the joy of having the child that overwrites this tension going on between the money you make and the debts that you carry. Now, the other way that this can show up is this energy can push you to pursue a job that brings you joy. And so again, you would worry that you're walking away from this job that is safe and secure, but it's such a great opportunity that you are willing to take a risk to do it. But just know you're going to have to war with your mind about the money situation. And one of the ways you can do that is just stop frivolously spending and saving more and just re-looking at your big financial picture in order to take on this new opportunity. Because keep in mind, you have two big powerhouses in your sign. Pluto helping you go through a huge change and transformation, but slowly, and the North Node that's just entered your sign also, meaning that the next 20 months are meant for you to grow and learn and become connected and make new friends. And that means, leaving some of the old ones behind. So it is a big year of change. And this full moon could be the first big chapter of your new life, and the things that need to end in order for you to experience that, they're coming. All right. And as I mentioned, we would end as usual with the sign of Pisces. And if you're an early degree Pisces, this is a big dramatic ending for you. And this, of course, means it's in your first house. So this is a goal that you want to achieve. Now, in order to achieve it, you have to get your partner on board because, of course, the pressure and the tension come from your seventh house of your marriage. Business partners, serious relationships, long-term friendships. There's something about what you want for yourself, what you want to let go of, how you no longer want to be identified, that you have to release. Now, if you're an artist, you may be releasing something new at this time, and your partner sees it as you becoming busy and not keeping up with the relationship, and they're no longer priority, and they're worried about what success means for you. But you have to choose yourself. You have to let go of relationships that don't allow you to grow, that hold you back, and that try to control you in some way. And whatever this new chapter is that you have for yourself, it could involve a move. And that energy of Uranus in your fourth house is, again, where the pressure is. So this could be, again, something that you want, your partner doesn't want it, and there could be one of you that's moving out of the house because you cannot settle the differences. And if it's not that, it's a shocking and surprising move somewhere. This could be local because it's Gemini energy that, again, is as a result of the pressure that the relationship has been under. But it's meant for you to have this chance to be who you want to be. So since the North Node has now moved on, it's time for you to finish the work on yourself. This is the last chapter of work that you've been doing since January of 2025. And it's time to finish. Whatever that is, you can become whole again. And maybe you're just taking on a new opportunity, and that opportunity maybe forces you out of the home. Maybe it's just for work. And of course, then you not being at home, holding everything together, puts pressure on your partner. So there's lots, as I've mentioned several times, of different scenarios. And all of this is going to depend on what is going on specifically in your chart. Is it your sun? Is it your rising sign? Because the rising sign is where it's going to show up most specifically. And what other personal planets are involved at the time of this eclipse. So, Pisces, it's your time. It's time to break free of and let go of anything that's been holding you back from stepping fully into who you are. And you can use this lunar eclipse energy to do just that. All right. So that's all of the signs. As I said, it can be complicated. Lots of scenarios, lots of options. But the number one thing I guarantee is no matter what happens, especially if you have something at 5 degrees in these areas, it's going to be challenging. It's going to shock you. It's going to surprise you. But then it's going to get you on the path that you're meant to be on. That's what the fated path of the North and South Node are all about, is there's a chapter that is beginning now, and you have to be ready for it. And you have to let go of those things that are keeping you from being ready, from being able to step through the door. So, step through the door. And that energy is really what we're going to be working with over the next several days. So, let's just go back to our transit view and pick up where we left off. So, as we head into Friday, really not going to see a lot of change, right? We're still going to see the sun and Mercury moving through the sign of Virgo. We're going to see the moon remain in Pisces for a few days, giving us time to fully integrate whatever this full moon event has been about. And that sun is going to be exactly square to Uranus. So if something was just building on Thursday, it's fully exploding as we enter Friday. So as I mentioned, the surprises are just going to keep coming, and it will be that way really throughout the weekend. And then we'll be getting ready and preparing for next week, which is really us working through whatever ended, whatever we had to release, whatever chaos was created. And there's still more challenges, emotional challenges, as Mars, of course, is in Cancer, the moon's home sign, and it's going to be squaring off with Saturn while both are making aspects, here with Jupiter in the sign of Leo. So this can be two leaders that come together to, defend their home land in some way. It's just one of the many interpretations for this. And then, believe it or not, because this year is flying by, we're going to see next week Venus be pre-shadow of her retrograde, where she's going to be coming back to the point she is now. So there is something about this eclipse event that we're not done with yet. And as I mentioned, next year we're going to have that Virgo final eclipse where we do have a complete wrap up. But this is something that comes up in September, October timeframe, where Venus does her retrograde that starts in Scorpio, heads back to her home sign of Libra. And so there is something hidden beneath the surface that's going to be exposed, and has everything to do with maybe relationships that are in the spotlight that we need to learn something from. But we'll talk more about all of this next week. So make sure you like, comment, share my work so that as many people as possible that need to be prepared for this really disruptive eclipse can be prepared. And then if you want daily tips, up here I'm going to put the link to my daily tarot cards that I post every day, typically early in the morning, that give you a mix of tarot, sometimes oracle cards, and what's going on in the astrology, so that you can, prepare how to work with the energy of the day. So thanks for taking extra time. I know it's kind of complicated to cover all of this energy, so I appreciate that you gave it extra time and attention. But as usual, I'll put the timestamps down there so that you can click on at least your sun, moon, and definitely your rising sign to get yourself prepared for the windows of opportunity that will be open for you at the time of this full moon lunar eclipse. All right, guys, we'll talk next week. Keep me posted. Keep those comments coming in. I love hearing how you're doing, and I am your biggest cheerleader, so let me be there to help you. All right, guys, take care.